Share those milk duds tonight.
Okay, good evening, and this is the December 4th Tilton Budget Committee meeting. Let's see, we have some from Genesis and Lockbeard. All together? Okay. Okay, we're going to just go through the minutes real quick here, and then we'll get started.
I have one thing on the minutes, and I'm not sure what it's supposed to be. At almost the bottom of page 1, it says they do work with all of the area police departments to establish procedures, and I don't know whether it's to educate them or what that's supposed to be. It says and education them.
Yeah, educate them.
Educate them? Okay. That's the only thing I saw.
Forget that, and there's some, let's see where we insert it for Youth Assistance Program. Okay. Wayne reclused himself at some point. I don't know where we're going to put it in. Is it in there?
I thought. Maybe not. Let me see.
I recommended it for the Paul Memorial.
On page 5.
Try.
Oh, something different.
Let's see, where do we start in with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Page 5.
This is something, a correction, I think. On page 5, on the second large paragraph, it says, Mr. Bossy made a motion to amend the amount to $72,000 as he believes it's important to help kids off of screen time.
That was not, that was recreation. Was it not?
Pines,
Pines,
right.
yep.
The Pines.
Right, but screen time?
I think it was referring to TV screen. Was that?
Yeah, I see where, Mr. Chairman, it says, motion by Mr. Bossy recommend funding the youth assistance program that should read the Pines Community Center instead of youth assistance program in the amount of $42,080.
No.
No, it's still the Youth Assistance Program.
No, it's definitely youth assistance program for $42,080.
Oh, okay.
That's youth, and then the next paragraph goes into the Pines.
I see what you're talking about, but I think he did mean TV and...
Yeah, TV, smartphones, electronics,
and
go outside and play.
I think he meant screen time.
I don't remember exactly what I said, to be perfectly honest with you, so. That was the gist of it.
Well, but we shouldn't discuss the issue here. Mr. Brock recused himself from discussion. It should be noted.
Yeah. So we would.
But I don't see what
Okay.
we're talking about yet. I guess that's why.
So if we go to page 2,
Page 2, okay.
I guess right before, next to address the committee, you can put that Mr. Brock recused himself for the
Discussion.
of the Youth Assistance Program.
But then you said,
But then
Mr.
you
quoted
here
him.
as
We have to
integrating
revote that.
discussion. So if you recuse yourself and then you're part of the discussion,
What we're going to do is, because Wayne also seconded the motion, so we'll vote on that again
Okay.
and just clean up,
Okay.
And the notes
housework.
could- and the
We'll do
notes-
that after everybody
And the notes can
goes.
reflect that I was just,
And then it will clean it up,
clean
so.
up.
Yeah.
And I was discussing that as I've made that...
You can discuss, if you're recusing yourself, you can discuss that and recuse yourself from the vote.
Right, and what I did was, at the beginning, I said, since I sit on the Board of Directors, I'm recusing myself and speaking as a member of the board
Right.
for that session in
But the-
support of...
So you're speaking to the member of Youth Assistance Program, so that should be reworded to say in the notes that Mr. Brock speaking as a Youth Assistance Board member,
Right.
and then you're covered.
Get that, Joanna?
Then you can take care of the second.
Yeah, we'll do the...
Yeah.
Then we'll do
Okay.
that at the end.
Anything else? I guess we can entertain a motion to accept the minutes as amended, if somebody wants to do that.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
She left her milk crates behind.
Okay, that's...
Good job.
And let's see, the first thing we had on the agenda was the Lockmere Village District. So you can come on up. That was a fast year. You're just here.
There you go, come on up.
Okay, we have copies here for your,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
We'll get an extra one here, I believe.
You can, Joanna can have one.
okay, we are submitting this, our budget forecast for the year 2014 for your approval. We have already approved it at our meeting. And, but due to the politics involved, it requires your signature also. So, we have the 3 copies here that we want signed. Those are your copies, so.
Okay.
Those are the extra.
Is there any change in the request?
Well, actually, it's not even a request,
No? Signature?
They're a village district.
so,
We are a village district in the town of Tilton,
Yep.
water district. Like I say, we have already approved this at a public meeting.
Yep. Were there any changes that we should know about?
Not really, it's business as usual, and it's a non-profit water district. We have our budget forecast meeting, and we adjust as to the bills, how much money we have to project for the next year and everything.
The only reason I ask that is we have 2 new members who probably have no
I
idea.
was just gonna say, can we do some introduction?
yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, we'll go.
Stanley Brown, how do you? Paul Boudreau, Marie Bonnet. Marie Bonnet's our treasurer, and I am a chair commissioner of the district.
Tom Brock?
And I'm John Scanlon.
John Scanlon.
I'm Jane Alden.
Remember?
Eric Byron?
And John Bossy?
And I know Catherine.
I think the new members probably would like just a general overview of what you do.
I would like an overview of, it seems like my understanding, explain to me how I'm wrong or right or wrong, is you're a village that's separate from the town, yet you're inside of the town? What is the...
Actually, I believe Lockmere is just a mailing district within the town of Tilton. Years ago, the railroad went through there. There was a railroad station. It was the Lockmere station, so it wouldn't be confused with another area of town. Consequently, due to an oil spill, a water district was established in Lockmere, and it's not very large. What would you say, 200 members?
People, I have no idea.
Yeah. And It's just that small little area, but to be on the board of directors, you have to live in the district. And so we, at times, have to scrape to get somebody to fill the positions, but it's been rumored that somewhere down the line, it'll probably be merged with Tilton Northfield, who knows? But as long as we can run it, efficiently, it's run as a village district.
So say that'd be frightening. Your rates are much cheaper than
Yeah.
Tilton Northfield.
Yeah.
Because the district is located entirely within the municipality of Tilton, they're required to present their budget to the budget committee.
Right. And that's basically my
It's really just
question.
a formality.
Why isn't it just integrated into a regular resident? And what does a resident of Lockmere have going for them or against them that a regular resident of Tilton would?
Well,
Oh, no, we're talking about
they're
Tilton.
residents of the town of
Well,
Tilton.
yeah, I know.
Tilton.
But the Lockmere Village District was formed to handle just the finances of that water system.
There was a leakage and
There was a gas
a
leak.
gas leakage in the
Fluffies.
ground. Fluffies, right. Well, yeah. it was a-
So they
yeah.
created
And
a water
so
system,
There
therefore a
was
village
13
district.
people that did a class action lawsuit against the oil company, and they won. And they were issued, what the heck was it? $1 million, I think it was. And
To
after a
create a
few
water
years, the
system.
town, the state, or whatever, was supplying bottled water to those 13 clients or whatever in the area. And then, I guess, the state said we were going to absorb the money if we didn't do something with it. So the town, the board, selectmen decided to create a district. And they did so back in, I think it was 1991. Someone had it on the board. And then they created the water system.
The reason we have to come here, basically, is that we're very small, and we do not have our own budget committee,
Right.
et cetera. And therefore, we do it within our own commissioners, and it is finally approved by, but it is, we do have a public meeting,
Yeah.
once a month, and an annual meeting, and
That explains to me why it's separated.
Yeah.
Issue with something happened and, all right,
Yeah.
it was just like one of those.
So it's a small budget.
Okay, the condo complex over
We're
here.
basically just covering, the consumption of the water and anything has to do with that, with the pump house and, chemicals and whatever we...
All equipment's holding
Yeah.
out good this still?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have our
ongoing.
problems,
Yeah.
but,
Okay, so I would start here with, this is the 3 copies we would like signed by the commissioners and
well, they haven't voted on it.
the selectmen.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we accept the budget request from the
Lockmere Village District.
Village District.
Village District.
Does John have any questions? Let's go around with anybody for questions
Yeah.
before we start. No?
Nope, I do not.
Rubber stamping, please.
Okay.
I have
Second
one,
it.
but it's just my own curiosity. Have you reached your, how do I say it? Have you expanded the system as far as you can expand it?
Not yet,
You're still able to,
yes.
much more? Like Lockmere,
I think it would
Lockmere
take,
Meadows, we took that on.
Lockmere Meadows.
We took that on.
Are you able to do
Yes.
anything as large as that?
oh, yes.
Okay.
Oh, again, you mean, in
Again.
addition to,
Any new projects would have to be engineered and approved by, well, at this time, we use Paul Fluid.
I'm curious because there still is some tracts of land
Yes.
within Lockmere that could be developed.
No, we seem to handle it.
Okay.
We seem
And
to
that's-
handle that.
That's
What
important
is,
for us
what is
to know.
described as the district.
right in the boundaries of the district. Yeah, I really
there-
don't know how much more, I really don't know how many more that they could handle.
What is your current boundary of the district? Is it limited to the users?
Like Lancaster Hill Road, no, it's described.
defined.
We have a map on the wall.
Because Tilton Northfield Water District is defined mainly by its users.
Yeah.
So you're within the town of Tilton, like these 2 houses are in the district, but this one isn't because it doesn't use the water, but yours is by
Oh, no.
land.
Ours is
no.
by the district.
Because
Those that don't use the water usually have their own private water, and they just didn't want to get on.
Right,
Yeah.
so your boundary is
Yeah, on a map.
land mass.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think it's before your house, I think. I don't know that your house is in it. Your house,
Probably
I
not,
don't think it is. I think it's like before that, there was the...
I'll never have sewer,
that
I'll never have
store,
municipal
that-
water.
I think it's
that
just
restaurant
before
that was
that.
there.
It is. I'm on an
That
island.
restaurant that was there, and all around the circle
Yeah.
of
Get the discussion,
Silver Lake Road and
and
Jamestown.
after the motion, discussion on
It's
the motion.
basically around that, yeah. And halfway up Lancaster, is it halfway up Lancaster, or is it all the way?
Up to Grange Road, anyway.
Yeah,
and
Grange Road, yeah.
So there's some properties like down at the foot of Lancaster Hill Road by the Shalimar, if that was ever developed. You
Not that
theoretic-
far.
You theoretically could expand your boundaries to include that in the district. If it was,
We've been questioned to that, to that
I suspected.
item, but naturally, they have to extend the main down Route 3, and that's a very costly.
Yeah.
And as soon as you mention that, they just drop it.
Wasn't there a town meeting the town meeting that brought up the recycling? Was the Lockmere District the one that we were talking about where they were gonna charge the people to hook to the sewer systems?
No, no, that was the
Those up.
Lockmere Sewer Project, not to be confused with the Lockmere Road.
Now,
The
I'm
Silver
really
Lake
messed
Road
up.
Project.
Yeah.
Or the Winnisquam Regional Basin Program.
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
We also have two selectmen
What's
in the
up?
audience, so that you wouldn't have to come twice, Pat.
No, great
You-
question.
you-
Very grateful. The senior center is lovely water.
Oh, good. Thank you.
You know that.
Mr.
Okay, we
Chairman,
had a motion.
I renew my motion so we can have a
And-
discussion.
And
I'll
we have a
second
Don't need to have any more?
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second from John?
Either one.
John or Jane? Whatever. And
A simultaneous
any discussion
second.
on the motion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? So moved.
Congratulations, sir.
Okay.
You did good.
Thank you.
And I apologize for last year.
The date, was it the date that was?
The form was
When I
the
printed the
previous
form, I
year's
folded
form.
last year's instead of this year's.
You know, that's the first thing I did, is I looked at the dates.
I had already found something that I didn't change, and I had to go reprint the top page because I put March 13 instead of 14. It's another thing.
Per sheet.
Go look at it.
Finance guys.
Great.
New?
Sure.
Well, it's funny, this new form just came out today, and I haven't really looked at this form. I mean, we performed our forecasting at a different date, and we had a different, format to go by, and
You did well, sir, getting together. You did good. If you can grab those and send them right over here, sir, this gentleman will be signing. And you can be on your way to enjoy the rest of this wonderful evening.
Senior Center, country music,
Oh,
You
Wednesday.
heading there?
Wednesday night.
That's why he's gotta be there. It starts at 7. We're late.
You're a little late for the music.
Hopefully they get started without me.
Carol, haven't heard the phone ring. Okay. It's all signed. That is,
That's one.
do you have any more copies of this? One for
For Johanna.
Yeah.
Can you give Johanna a blank copy?
You can have mine if you want.
Yeah, if you have a spare.
This is the signed one, sir. Last one.
Everybody signed? Yep. And 3. Excellent. Oh, so you can keep that.
Okay.
Make sure it doesn't match next year's. Excellent. Well, thanks for coming down.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice meeting you all, and
Go pick away,
all
Paul.
that you do. Because I wouldn't want to be on this board. I'm sorry. Sorry, I got enough to do.
4 hours of driving to get to this meeting.
Alrighty, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You all have a nice holiday.
You too now.
Okay, the next thing that we have for 7:15, few minutes late here. We have the Red Cross. Good evening.
Good evening.
Let's see. Report.
Wayne Brock?
Nice to meet you.
I'm John Scanlon.
Jane Alden.
John Bossy.
Nice to meet everyone. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to be here. I'm Alice Major. I'm the Regional Development Coordinator for the American Red Cross, and the town of Tilton is important to us, as all the towns of New Hampshire. We are here tonight to ask for the town to support us for our disaster preparation and relief services that we provide 24/7 to the town. We've been providing this service for just around 96 years. We're only asking the town to support your local residents of the town of Tilton. Last year, the Red Cross, for those of you that we are based in headquartered in Concord, but we service the entire state, including all the over 3,000 residents of the town of Tilton. We provide disaster training, disaster and preparedness training. We provide courses in CPR, LNA, first aid, licensed nurses assistants, and our mission is to really keep the community safe and prepared in case there is a disaster, and also in case there is a personal disaster, such as a heart attack or they're in need of first aid. So we have a few arms of the Red Cross. In the year, last year, our fiscal year runs from July 1st, 2012 to June 30th, 2013. We were fortunate that the town of Tilton didn't experience fire, but we did assist 16 residents. There was a disaster, a thunderstorm that caused a lot of damage, and we were there. When someone does have a fire, whether it's a multi-fire or home fire, we provide financial assistance, lodging for the first 48 hours, food, clothing, and really peace of mind. When you experience a home fire, you're often not prepared, and you don't know where to turn. One resident said to me, she was standing there and she said, I don't really need the Red Cross. I thought they're for people without any shoes, and she realized she didn't have her shoes on. We are there when you need our help. We also connect to other social service agencies. I recently had a fun time. Not only are we there for people when they have a disaster, but before a disaster. And I was giving a presentation to a school, and we were telling them what to do in preparation for a fire. Well, you need to make sure that you have a plan. So prepare for a pizza night and have a safety box in your house. And I asked them, what are some of the things you'd put in a safety box? And a few of them raised their hand: water, non-perishable food, copies of your license, copies of your passport. And this little boy raised his hand and he said, I think what you really need is a generator. So we are there when you need our help, and we're asking the town, we ask this of each of the towns, we base our amount based on the amount of population, and it's 45 cents per person. We are asking the town of Tilton for $1,609. We ask for that because that's what we based it on. It's up to you on what your town can afford. Last year, we were privileged to receive $500, and that was really helpful for us.
Excellent.
And you say you helped 16 families this year?
Correct.
In Tilton?
In Tilton. And we don't know when a disaster is going to strike. It may, the town of Franklin experienced a tremendous amount of fires this year, and we don't know why. So we're there mostly to be there when people need help, but our greatest service is really preparing the community for when there is a disaster.
And I guess that would be my question. There was some concern for the last couple of years about the amount of courses that have been taught to the Tilton residents in regards to CPR, CNA, such, even babysitting. Those seem to have kind of dwindled down. from the educational. Is there any plans for that to be brought back up, or more offering, or to do it, a lot of it with conjunction with like the Pines Recreational Center?
I'm not sure, I haven't heard of more plans to increase that level. What we tend to do is we value on how many, we need at least 6 students to be there to have a course. And it really depends on the community, how many. We encourage people to then travel to Concord to take the course. So we would still offer the training. We'd love to be able to provide the training right here and encourage residents to do so. I could find out for you and find out, if we have training available in Tilton this year, or where is the closest training sites that are going to be available. I think that's a great question. Part of my position also is to write grants, so with that in mind, there's a lot of people that need LNA training. The community, Lincoln Financial Foundation has offered scholarships, 6 scholarships to women, which is still trying to increase other foundations to offer those scholarships. We would then offer those to the town of Tilton, the town of Concord. We're going to be sending out a press release and anyone encouraging people to sign up for a free program. Each program for an LNA program costs $1,500. That's a lot when you consider that most of the people taking the LNA program are people who don't have a job. They're single women and they're usually unemployed. And that's why they're trying to get employable. So it's a hard thing to do, and we're trying to help the community to get more people to sign up so that they can have a better life.
And a suggestion would be that if those funds became available, if you could contact someone like the Pine Center, Community Center, because they're willing to create space for that to occur, and it would be a good coordination between the 2 agencies to get a program that's vital. And I agree, employment situations are difficult to come by, and that's one of the employment situations that seems to keep steady, or at least increasing.
It does.
With that. And then to piggyback with things like CPR and then those situations would be a great help to the town.
And I believe at our last meeting, the Pine Center said that they're actually a disaster relief space for the town of Northfield as well.
I have a question. How are you're representing the Red Cross Regional Development. How are you and your organization different than the worldwide Red Cross?
We are, we're statewide. We're not different, but we're not funded by the National Red Cross. We don't get any federal funding. We don't get any state funding. We have to raise our own funds as a state agency. What was different was before we were 5 different Red Crosses in the state of New Hampshire. So each of the 5 had to raise their own funds, which was a lot of overhead, which we didn't need. So we streamlined that. The governing body of the Red Cross, how we position our logo, how we formulate our budget, is directed by the National Red Cross, but we don't get any funding.
The question I would have is, how would losing this money from us and other municipalities change your organization?
We would have to pull back on the number of services that we provide, but we wouldn't necessarily do it to the town of Tilton. We would look at the whole picture. And
this is my bigger question, and those were the, setup questions for the following was, when I first saw the Red Cross wants $1,800 from the town of Tilton, I said to myself, you're obviously a great organization, one of the greatest charities ever, the things you do for people all over the world. It would just seem to me that $1,800 from the town of Tilton to the Red Cross would be a drop in the bucket. How would you explain that to me or to someone, a taxpayer out there, that seems like we are volunteering the taxpayers' money to a charity? And the reason being that, like some other charities that we have, other organizations, the Visiting Nurses of Franklin, or they're local and that rely on it, and it's all local. Red Cross is a behemoth. It's huge.
I think you answered that by saying that you're basing this on the population of Tilton, and you told us 45 cents, I think you said, and that this past year you serviced 16 families. That there could have been 5 people in each family, And that's what that money is used for. And then you also said that you do not receive any monies at all from the national organization. Am I correct in restating that?
In directing for the disaster relief
So
services.
that's what you're asking us for? To
Correct.
help the residents of Tilton?
Correct.
Okay.
And it would be, if there aren't any fires in Tilton and nothing happens, that money would then go to another, I mean, as a statewide agency, we would, if Tilton decided not to give us any money, then the other towns would have to absorb the cost. We would still be here. It's not a direct.
You know, I appreciate your summing up. I heard her answers, and I appreciate that. I would like the answer to my question, is just to sell it to me. I get that you
I
are
think that she
passionate
did,
about
that's
this.
all I'm saying.
No, I'm actually, I'm interested too. I want to
And
hear it.
just sell it to the average taxpayer who happens to see this video. And sum it up.
I would say there is a perception that we are this huge Red Cross on a national level, and we get, international disasters are supporting us. But your town, the residents of Tilton, are supported by the local Red Cross. So in a sense, we are like the local nursing nonprofit in your Red Cross. We are the local people, we are the local volunteers that are servicing the town of Tilton.
And it gets to the part that gets to me, is that I am very lucky not having to have to use your services on a national level or on a local level, but if my house is burning down, and I see the local volunteer who pulls up in his truck.
He's trained by the Red Cross.
Big old van from the Red Cross, and he says, "I'm here to help." And he puts his hat on, or her hat on, and says, "I'm from the Red Cross." I'm not going to care whether they're from the national, state, or local, because this is my fellow community member that's helping me out. And for 45 cents, I want to see you go get at least a quarter cup of coffee for 45 cents for something that's going to...
And a lot of my confusion also came from, this is just a quick summary, like as an example, Genesis, who's coming up next, has a budget line items and what their financials are, and I don't know that we necessarily need all financials, but, that was, the difference was, obviously, you can't give us the financials for the Red Cross.
We can. On a local level, we can. We are, as a state organization, and we also have to pay for, some of these, the LNA services are paid first fee services, so we do get a proportion of that. But the local volunteer that you were talking about has to go through many hours of training.
Yes.
And that's what your funding will go for as well. So those are the outside costs that nobody sees. We are 93% supported by volunteers. And these volunteers have to be trained. We also have to pay for their gas. We have to help them. A lot of them are retired, a lot of them on our fixed income. We have a budget for the, I didn't include the budget because it wasn't ready. But it wasn't because we didn't have it. We didn't have it, but now we have it. So you can see that the budget is, we are,
And the reason I asked...
$1 million agency with 600.
I didn't realize that it was that local of a... And you've answered my question.
We can make some copies of that later.
I have a question as well. So last year, the town gave, what was you say, $800 last year?
$500.
$500, and you helped 16 families. Do you know what the cost was to the Red Cross of helping those 16 families?
Can we, I want to clarify that. The letter from October 15th says, on July 14th, 2012, that the Red Cross assisted 16 Tilton residents.
Okay.
So is it 16 residents in 2012 and 16 families in 2013, or are we transposing the families to residents?
It's 16, it's 16, in 2013 it was 16 residents.
2012?
2012.
The thunderstorm.
Correct.
I remember it well.
Yeah, I did too.
On average, a family is usually, when we speak about a family, it's usually 2 to 4 people, and for a fire, it costs us about $780 to $1,000 to help one family, and that's 4 people.
So out of the 16 people, residents, it
was well over $1,000.
Were there
was
any
about-
incidences in 2013?
Not yet. I mean,
That was frightening.
I didn't mean that.
We understand, yeah.
Not at this time.
You answered it like that.
Well, Franklin,
good.
Manchester, Concord, all the
Franklin
areas
has been
around.
experiencing a tremendous amount. It's heart-wrenching for me. Anytime there's a fire, it's not, it doesn't make us feel good, and I'm thankful that the town of Tilton has not experienced a lot of disasters, and
And that leads me to a question is, how are you notified of these events? Because we did actually have one, a tree came down on a
the Red
resident.
Cross may have not
Very
responded to
close
that.
to where the one happened in 2012. It wasn't quite as traumatic, but I'm sure it was pretty traumatic. But at any event, how are you notified of these?
We try and go to as many as we can. We don't have enough volunteers to
But
go to
how are
all
you
of them.
notified that these have occurred?
We are hooked up with the EMS system and the police and fire.
Okay.
And if there's a multi-fire family, a fire with a multi-family, the police will ask the family, do you want the Red Cross, if we're not there. But if it's a situation in Manchester where 60 residents were impacted at once, we did set up a shelter.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, John?
I'm sorry.
Just to, I guess, I don't know, for clarifying, so when you see, like, there was a disaster in the Philippines with the hurricane or the typhoon, and everywhere you go, it said donate $10 to the Red Cross. You don't receive a dime of that.
We don't receive a dime, and it costs us money to process that.
But people may think that they're supporting their local Red Cross when they're really just supporting the worldwide or the national level of Red Cross and not the couple million residents of New Hampshire.
When they donate, it'll say if you go on the website, it'll say designated to the Philippines typhoon. It's very confusing. It's confusing to us. It's confusing to people who are
You get
donating.
things that say text, text this to $10 will be donated to the Red Cross, and people may think that they're donating locally, but they're not in actuality.
You get text? That's
Well,
it?
they say text, I get something that says, when they have, like, the Philippines thing, text something to this number, and you'll donate $10, and it shows up in your cell phone bill.
Yeah, that's a problem that we have. We're trying to clear that up. Even if let's say, if you wanted to run you'll see a number of fundraisers that are for the Philippines, people in the Philippines, and we'll have the Red Cross logo on it because we are affiliated with the Red Cross International. We're not, it's all at volunteering out of the goodness of our heart, because we are, as the American Red Cross of New Hampshire, we don't receive any of that funding. 100% of it will go to the Philippines. But because we're part of a big national organization, we still have to process it.
John, I just...
Jean, all set? I just want to go. Go ahead. Yeah, okay. Wayne?
Yep. We're talking about the disaster training. How much does it normally cost the local area for that to occur? Let's say that we want to train 4 people. What would be the cost, not national, not international, but from a local point of view, would that amount to, approximately?
For 6 people,
Yeah,
it's approximately $100 a person
for the training.
for the training.
And that includes the recertification or training, or just the initial training?
That's the initial training, that's textbooks, that's instructor, that's facility, that's the whole getting the training if it's over a period of 8 hours or 2 days, and that's also training the instructors.
That's free to the volunteers?
It is 100% free to the public.
So if we were to train 6 volunteers from, let's say, the town of Tilton, that would automatically take $600 out of that $1,000 that would be given, if it was given, to that fund.
It would be taken, well, the fund is set up for disaster relief services, but it would go towards that, and then we would pull it from another town.
Right.
Another town who didn't experience a fire. So it's,
Pat, did you have anything?
I don't so much have a question as just a statement. I've been involved in a couple of situations in Tilton where if it hadn't been for the Red Cross, these Tilton residents would have just been completely out of luck. Places to stay, food, heavy coats. Thank God for the Red Cross. There wasn't anybody else to call.
And I second that, because I was involved in those same two things, Joe, and one of them in particular, the Red Cross was there before a lot of the local residents who came to help were there. I don't know how you got there that fast, but you were there, you already had the housing set up, and you provided the medicine for a woman who was very, very ill and needed medicine immediately, and you even did that. I can't say enough of what I've seen you do in two situations that I've seen.
Thank you. We're really privileged. I am privileged to work with our volunteers. I mean, a lot of them work full-time, have families, and still dedicate their time to the Red Cross and training, and I can't thank them enough.
Catherine?
We have a fact sheet that talks about 5 new mobile shelters, equipment trailers that were purchased with a grant, and they're going to be distributed throughout the state, or maybe they already have. What is the closest one to us?
Concord.
Concord. And what are they capable of doing in an emergency?
These 5 trailers were, we got a grant through Homeland Security. The 5 trailers are set up with everything that you would need for if there was an emergency that affected the whole town of Tilton. We needed to set up shelters. It has cots, it has food, it's got medical equipment, it has blankets, tables, books, everything that we would need for a shelter, comfort kits, towels, so that previously to these shelters, to these mobile shelters, it looks like a big truck. We would have volunteers that would come in their cars, and we'd have to pack up the cars and get things from various locations. This enables us to get there quickly and have everything set up.
Did you coordinate that with the local emergency management that's already in place?
Yes, in some cases we have the trailers are stationed at firehouses if we were, and they're in Nashua, for instance, they're stationed in the school, the high school, and in Manchester they're stationed at the firehouse right in one of the firehouses in Manchester. In Concord they're at our office.
How many people is one of those trailers capable of sheltering?
It can open up a whole shelter for about 200 people.
Wow.
They're pretty impressive.
That is.
I was the one who wrote the grant, so I know exactly what was involved in it. And I spoke to the emergency manager of the town of Nashua to ask him, was this a waste, or what do you think? And he said, it is great. You should ask every emergency manager in every town how they feel about it, because now we know that all we have to do is move that vehicle, that truck, and just unload it. It saves so much time.
So depending on the emergency, if it was, if there was one localized in one part of the state, and I'm thinking about the floods that we had a few years ago in the western part of the state, you could mobilize as many of those as necessary that community might need, or communities?
Yeah, they're stationed all around the state, so some of them would take some time to get there, but they would be able to get there. And we already have our Director of Disaster Services, we've already have schools and rec facilities that are already ready to go should we have a disaster. Should we need to open a shelter, all we need to do is get the equipment there.
Interesting.
What are ARC units? Support to other ARC units.
American Red Cross units.
Red Cross units.
American Red Cross.
Oh, okay. What would that money, what are they? Are they, what are the other units? Are they, looking down at the bottom, first page, right there, the bottom line.
Oh, that could be whether or not we need it in for disaster relief services, preparedness services, whether blood services will need it as well, although they're separate, but we do have funds available. But in these cases, it's spread around to the different programs.
So that, like, the 182,000 was given to those other programs?
Other programs, it could be disaster relief services in another town that doesn't have enough money either.
And what are professional fees? What does that include?
That includes training, and for our instructors. It also includes consultant, but I'm not sure of the intricate breakdown of the professional fees, but I can find out.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? Well, thank you very much, and we appreciate everything the Red Cross has done
Thank you.
for years, and hope we don't need a disaster in the future,
yeah.
but
We
more for trainings. They do.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And I will find out about the trainings and where they're going to happen, and also the professional fees and a breakdown of the support to other ARC units as well.
And if someone wants to be a volunteer and go through the
Oh.
training, how do we do that?
That would be wonderful.
Spare time.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, for the audience, there may be people in the audience who are watching this that,
I can give you my card, and if you can call me, then I can connect you to our volunteer services, and we are always in need of volunteers.
Right over there.
There's the camera.
We're always in need of volunteers, so the town of Tilton to help us out and volunteer for the American Red Cross of New Hampshire, that would be lovely.
Thank you.
thank you,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
No. Okay. Did everybody get a copy? Did I get a copy of this? Did you get a copy of the...
Other budget.
I gave
Got
her
one?
one.
Oh, excellent, thanks. Okay, the next on our agenda is for Genesis, and come on down, get 3 chairs for you.
I'd like to ask the first question, if I may.
Sure, why don't we introduce ourselves? I don't know if you've heard everybody yet.
Well, I don't want to take a quiz, but maybe I
Wayne Brock?
And I'm John Scanlon.
I'm Jane Alden.
Eric Byron?
John Bossy.
Catherine Dawson.
And we also have 3 selectmen that are here tonight. So that way, if there's questions, you can get them all at one time as opposed to have to come back at 2 separate times. I don't know if you've had to do that other towns, but this streamlines it for you. So I guess that's, you can introduce yourselves and...
I'm Kristen Welch. I'm the Director of Development and Communications at Genesis.
I'm Maggie Pritchard. I'm the Executive Director at Genesis.
Matt McFarland, I'm on the finance.
Okay. Well, you can start to tell what Genesis does for the town of Tilton and that, and then you can ask some questions.
Well, Genesis is the community mental health center serving the Lakes region. So we serve 24 towns in southern Grafton and Belknap counties, Tilton being one of them. Last year we served 3,264 people in our entire catchment area and 129 residents of Tilton. We are requesting an appropriation for our emergency services program. This is a program that offers crisis psychiatric care to any resident of your community, whether they have insurance or not, whether they have financial resources to pay or not. We are able to come in, assess them, treat them, and keep them safe and keep the community safe. That program is available, as I said, to anyone. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We always have somebody on call for that program. And the way we come up with our appropriation request is we also use a formula based upon the population. We look at what our deficit was the previous year, and how much we'd like to reduce that by, and then determine it based on population. And that program typically runs at a significant deficit because, as I said, it's available to anybody. So many of the people who use it don't have health insurance, or their insurance doesn't pay the actual cost, or they just don't have the financial resources. But we still are obligated to treat them. So really, it's a safety net program for every resident in your community. It reduces the burden on your police and fire departments. They can focus on their core responsibilities, and we can treat people having a psychiatric crisis. We are the only provider who can do that. We are the only ones credentialed to provide that service at the hospital, so we're really the only game in town, so to speak. So, do you have any questions at this point? Or?
Well, I asked for the first question just because I used you as a reference. My first question you already answered was, are you actually local? Because as I'm saying, you're worldwide, huge, and people like, and I look at Genesis, that was my first question. Are you just local?
Yes.
What area?
We have offices in Laconia and in Plymouth, and we serve 24 towns in southern Grafton and Belknap County. So we serve all of Belknap County, and then go as far north as, okay, don't judge me on my geography, but I think the furthest north we go is, what is it?
Alexandria?
Alexandria, maybe? But we serve 24 towns total, and we're not the same as Genesis Healthcare. So that we're often confused with them. We're a completely different company. We just happen to have the same name. So.
And are you a company, or are you a, not-for-profit?
Yeah, private, not-for-profit, with like 20 board of directors, all volunteers from the various towns that are on the board. So.
How many members of the board live in Tilton?
None of them right now. We did have a board member a couple of years ago who lived in Tilton.
We've been trying, though.
We've been trying.
I tried to get Tom Kavanaugh. I tried to get Ken Martin. I haven't been able to get a Tilton.
You said you served 129 clients in Tilton?
Correct.
How many of those are under your emergency services program?
26 of them.
26 of them?
Yep. And we also provided $21,500 in free care to Tilton residents last year. That was a really significant increase from the year before. The year before, we provided about $8,200 in charity care. So it basically...
What does charity care encompass?
Charity care is services that we provided that we are not going to be paid for because the person either didn't have health insurance or didn't have financial resources or something to that effect. So,
but what's the nature of that service?
It could either have been emergency services, it could have been
is it I guess I'm asking, is it counseling, is it nursing care?
All of the above. I don't have the actual breakdown of it, I just get the lump sum total. But
and that was for the 20, I'm sorry, that was for the 26 people, the 21,000?
That was for the 129 total Tilton residents that we served, and then 26 of those people sought emergency services.
How much?
So you said you use a formula?
Yes.
What's the formula?
The formula is, so this year, our emergency services deficit was $329,000, so we hope to reduce that by $135,000 next year. So the formula was $135,000 times 6%, which is the population of Tilton, and then we came up with the figure of $8,100 for our request.
6% representing?
That's the population of Tilton in our service area. So, and we do that for all of the towns. So, so it's fair based on, and actually that was a suggestion from the Tilton Budget Committee. So
about 6 years ago, they said, Maggie, when you ask us for money, can you do a formula so that we know that you're not asking us for more than Guilford or Belmont or whatever? And so ever since Tilton told us to do it, we've been doing it that way.
Do you do that across the board for all the, so it's very proportional from us to other towns then?
What is the rate that's billed per hour when you come up with the 21,000?
Depends what service you're getting. So if you got therapy, published rate for therapy is probably $100 an hour. If you see a psychiatrist for an evaluation, it's probably $260 for the evaluation. It's not based on time. So it depends on the service that you utilized. So those 129 people who came from Tilton to get services from us got any number of services. Could have had an injection by the nurse, could have seen the doctor, could have seen the emergency clinician at 2 a.m. in the ER. That's just everybody that we served in Tilton and how much we gave away in service to them, or charity care that we gave to them.
If you have a resident that does have insurance, are you able
We
to
bill it.
bill?
Absolutely.
Now, you said the money you're asking for, and this particular request is for the emergency services, though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We only ask the towns to support emergency services because it's available to any resident of your town. So,
And because it's very much like the fire department and the police department, you'd always want it to be there because you'd want to have access to it. You wouldn't want it to go away. And the state, although they mandate it as a service, they don't fund it as a service. So they just say, be available, take all comers, whenever. And they tell you, you have to have a doctor on, you have to have a therapist on, but they don't pay you to have them on. They just do it, just do it.
Do you have towns that don't contribute?
Yes, 5 towns that haven't contributed last year, Tilton being one of them. So that would be 19.
And we're one of the 5?
Yes. But we're working on it. We keep coming back. I'm almost related to John now. I think I've seen him so many times, so.
So I see, like you have emergency services, do you have a building? Do you have a hospital? Do you have a place for people to go to?
like when we see a patient in emergency
Yeah.
services, we typically see them at the emergency room. So our emergency services clinicians have an office in the medical office building at LRG Healthcare. And they typically see them in the emergency room. They can also see somebody who can come into the office who's having a crisis. We also see people via telemedicine. So because we provide emergency services to LRGH, Franklin, and Spear. So we only have one person on call because you can imagine how expensive it would be to have 3 people on call. So if they have 3 emergencies in one night, they can see somebody via telemedicine. We can bill insurance for that. It helps the patient get care faster, gets them out of the emergency room hopefully faster.
And, you know, I try and read and try and understand, and one of the things that seems to be a roadblock for the mental health community, you know, and it's like a big thing that people are starting to be aware of. It's obvious what the Red Cross does. You know, it's obvious what they do if somebody has a fire, a tsunami, what would the average person who is having I hate the, you know, a nervous breakdown, I don't know what the terminology, I go to the hospital and I'm having a nervous breakdown because of the fire and the Red Cross never showed up, okay? What would normally happen to this person?
Okay, so just let's pretend I'm a clinician, because I am by training.
Not like you, but just like as an average person.
So one of our master's level therapists like me would go into the emergency room, sit with you, or put you on TV and see you by telehealth, depending which ER you were in at which time, and give you a mental status exam, give you a diagnosis, find out what was going on with you, and call the physician on call and say, Stanley's having a really difficult time. This is what I think is the matter with him. Do you have any recommendations, doctor? The doctor would get on the phone with the ER doctor. We'd probably give you a shot. No, I'm just kidding. We wouldn't give you a shot. But we'd make some recommendation. Yeah, not that kind of shot. We'd give you, you know, a medical prescription, and then we'd follow up with you the next day or even in the next 6 or 7 hours, depending how bad you were, or we would make a placement of you in a psychiatric facility like the state hospital. So we would say, Stanley's not safe to go home. We need to have him in a secure environment. So I, as the clinician, will write up the paperwork. The ER physician will sign it with me. The psychiatrist will note that that was the appropriate treatment for you, and then you'll wait to go to a bed at the state hospital as soon as one's available, which might not be for a little while, so be patient.
And that's my question, is that's what, without you, what would the emergency room do?
they would have to manage that crisis by themselves. It would take security away, it would take nurses away, it would take tremendous amounts of their manpower away, so that when, you come in having a heart attack, you're going to wait, because they're having to deal with that with a psychiatric patient.
Plus, they're not trained to do that.
Right.
And it's unfortunate, because I don't think it's taken as seriously as it should be.
Pat has a question.
I have a couple of questions.
We didn't introduce Pat. I don't know if you met Pat.
Well, we know Pat.
I have a couple of questions. One is in your financial statement is under investments, the total is a little over $1 million, $1,092,000. So you're coming to the towns and asking for money, and you have $1 million in investments. So can you kind of explain why I, as a selectman, should spend taxpayers' money to help you when you have money already in the bank?
Does my finance guy, I'll let my finance guy talk about it, and then I'll have something to say too, but.
Okay.
Right. We're required by the state, under our contract, to meet certain financial ratios. One of those ratios is the amount of cash on hand. They consider that cash. So part of it goes to meeting that requirement by the state. We have to have it available. That came about because a mental health center in the state collapsed financially. It took the state by surprise. They didn't realize what was going to happen. So we have to report to them every month. The state also, at the end of their fiscal year, sometimes, some years, they're unable to pay us. The largest portion of our income comes from Medicaid. When the budget runs out of money, they stop paying us. They've gone for as much as, 2 months? So we have to have sufficient funds available, or else we shut down. Because we have to continue the payroll, which is our biggest single expense. And we're very conservative with payroll. Our people certainly aren't paid. I think it's a miracle that someone will stay with us. So that's basically why we have to have that cushion. Part of the cushion is funny money too. I call it funny money because it's appreciation on the securities that we fund. We don't really get, we don't get the money. I mean, it's just how they appreciate it. We don't get money unless we sell the security. And tomorrow that could be gone. I mean, during the last stock crash, we lost a significant amount of money. Fortunately, most of it has come back over the years. That's basically why we have so much cash.
You also, as a nonprofit, have to have enough money if you collapse. So the mental health center that collapsed happened to be in Dover, and Kristen and I worked at it just before it went under, actually, in the company that took it over. And you had to have enough cash on hand to go out of business to pay your employees 60 days worth of salary. So we always want to make sure that we have enough in the bank to cover our operational expenses should the state not pay us, or should we, God forbid, go out of business. But also, right now, we are in 2 buildings in the Laconia area, and we are completely sardines in our buildings. And we can't continue to see people if we don't have space for it. And as you know, when you go in to see a therapist, you want to have some privacy. You need to be in an office. We've converted 4 closets in the last 6 months to be offices because we're so tight on space. So I've been talking to the Finance Committee and Ed on the Board of Directors and on Finance about, can we use some of that savings, some of those assets to purchase a bigger building, move out, get into better space? Because the demand for mental health just keeps going up. There just seems to be more and more need for our services and for people. So we're going to reach a point where we're going to have to dip into that savings, even though the board's not really comfortable and doesn't really want to do that, because we're out of space.
The services to our most severely ill clients last year increased by 32%, and so our staff had to increase by 17% to keep pace with that. So that's not going away. Yeah. It's probably going to just get worse.
As a matter of fact, you lost your office, right?
I did lose
Maggie literally doesn't have an office.
I have a bag now.
My other question was, Kristen earlier had stated that you are the only agency doing what you do. So my understanding is Child and Family Services also does crisis. So
maybe for their clients. So how the state of New Hampshire is organized is there are 10 community mental health centers in the state, and over the last 32 years I've worked at 5 of them. So, and the state determines what area you're responsible for, and then the state, through their statutes and through their administrative rules, tells you how you have to deliver service and what service you have to deliver. Now, as a private nonprofit, you can choose not to contract with the state, but that's really what your business is all about. That's how mental health centers came to be. Most of them started in the 60s after President Kennedy signed the Mental Health Act. Some of them started a little earlier as other clinics. For the most part, they were all formed to keep people out of institutions and in their communities and working and functioning at the highest level that they could, even though they had a psychiatric condition.
Does Genesis provide support services for people who are developmentally disabled or placed in the community? Or?
No, so the state of New Hampshire has separated those two. When I started in 1981, I think they were together. It was called the Bureau of Developmental Services and Mental Health or something. And now they're 2 separate bureaus, both under the Department of Health and Human Services. So Lakes Region Community Services Council is the designated agency for people with developmental disabilities. Now, we do share about 45 clients with them who have both a developmental disability and a mental health disorder, meaning our psychiatrist does their prescriptions and what have you. But for the most part, we're very separate organizations.
Does Genesis help do placements in communities or anything like that, or for people who have mental health issues or disabilities? Or?
Right, so if somebody was from Tilton, became homeless, went to New Hampshire Hospital, we would help them transition out of the hospital, find them a place to live, maybe have them live in one of our supported housing units, those kinds of things, yes.
My name's Joe, I'm one of the selectmen as well. I support what you do, but I'm deeply troubled. Half a dozen times, our town welfare director has told me that she refers clients to Genesis, and I can't discuss the specifics because I don't know them, but she says that you're less than responsive to their needs, or you don't provide services to these people. Like I say, I can't just point to specifics. I know this is a very generic statement, but how could something like that possibly be? If a town welfare person who's in contact with people that seem to need your services or request your services or want your services can't get your services, how could that happen?
There are 2 things in mental health that affect people's access to the services. One is just how ill you are. Our system is set up to care for the most sick people and the people in crisis. All the rest of us who might be experiencing a bad time and need help, that's sort of up for grabs in the state's mind, right? Because the state says we only want these mental health centers, and we're only going to support them for treating the most ill people and do the emergency work, support them in telling them what to do. So let's say Kristen goes through a divorce, she loses her job, she's kind of depressed, she has nothing, she's just at wit's end. She comes into town welfare for help with her rent, and she says, I'm so sad, I'm crying all the time, I can't get a job, what have you. The town welfare says, you should go to Genesis. Talk to one of the counselors there. Maybe they can help you out. Kristen calls. She says, No, I don't want to kill myself. No, I'm not in crisis. I'm not going to hurt anybody else. Do I feel bad? Yes. Do I have any health insurance? No. Can you afford a sliding scale fee? Because maybe you could pay $10 to come in and see us. No, really, I can't. I just had to ask town welfare. Well, why don't you come in and see one of our emergency services people? But that's all you're going to get. You're going to get that Band-Aid. Kristen's not likely going to get well because no one supports that part of the organization. There's like that, it's sort of like the middle class. Something falls out from the middle. If you're just not sick enough or you're not in crisis, there's a big hole there. And that's hard to explain to people, and it's very hard when Kristen calls to say, I can't really do anything for you right now, but if you get really bad, come on in. Or if you feel really bad tonight in the middle of the night, go to the ER, and we'll at least see you in our emergency department. But we can't give you ongoing counseling or therapy otherwise.
I'll do more research and see.
Yeah, please do. And always have them call. I mean, I've been around a long time, and I'm very approachable. Just have them call me, and I'm Maggie, and I'm the only Maggie we got, so.
And my other question was, how many employees does Genesis Behavioral Health have?
Right now, I think there's about 160 of them.
How many total patients, how many total crisis?
3,300 patients in a year, about. And of those, probably a little over 800. Yeah,
yes.
almost 1,000 are usually emergency. About 1/3 of them end up being emergency clients.
Anybody else at the table have any questions, or Selectmen?
I have a question for the finance person, and just doing quick math here and my inability to do good division, just to confirm that 129 people from the town of Tilton were helped last year, and we're being asked for $8,000. Is it correct in my math that that's less than $59 per person? Yeah. My quick math.
Oh, look at that.
I'm sitting there the whole time and I'm writing all over.
And you should have grabbed that and done it real quick.
I just went round numbers, $8,000 divided by 129 people helped.
Keep in mind, though, there's only 26 people in there for emergency services, and that's what they're asking us to fund.
Right.
Okay.
And keep in mind that emergency services is the most expensive service, right? So typically emergency services is about $250 an hour, I think is what is the Medicaid rate or whatever. So if 22 people or 26 people from Tilton come in and they don't have insurance for emergency services, which typically is the case, I got to tell you, nobody comes in crisis that has insurance for the most part, then that's 22 times 250 just for that service alone. But there's a lot of again, I compare it to your police department and your fire department. You don't want to just pay for when they go to see someone. You want to make sure they're always there. You know, and why we ask the towns for a portion of our deficit is because we want to keep that program going, and we never want to have as big a deficit as we have in that program, which is usually close to $300,000 a year. So.
Pay the people on standby.
And so it was 129 people helped last year. 26 of them were emergency services. What was the other 103?
There were 43 kids, 72 adults, and 14 elders that were seen in Tilton. Oh, either for therapy or by a doctor or...
We also do a lot of things within your community. So we have a liaison to the Winnisquam School District who meets monthly with the school psychologist and with the guidance counselors to talk about kids in the school who may be haven't getting services at Genesis, and that those cases are, you know, the information's brought back to Genesis as well. We also have a clinician who's in the school providing services right there for kids who maybe can't get to an appointment, whose parents don't have transportation, whose parents can't take time off work to get them there. So they're able to do that, and I believe they're there a day and a half a week at this point.
Do you ask the school for money?
No.
You don't ask the school district for money?
Well, we can sometimes bill for those services in the school. And we also received a grant a couple of years ago to start coordinating these kinds of services. So Winnisquam was one of the districts. Winnisquam and Newfound were the two districts we looked at specifically. We also have an elders outreach clinician who has been working with the director of the senior center and is going to start doing some programming over there. I think next Tuesday she's doing her first one. So that's starting as well. And we've met with Chief Cormier as well to offer trainings and
our emergency staff will always do trainings with the police departments to sort of help them finesse a commitment. How do you bring someone in? What's the rules? What's the paperwork? Make sure that they are familiar with the protocol, because it changes just a little bit every so often, so.
Anybody else at the table?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Just, you said, how much does it cost per emergency service?
$250 an hour.
And how many hours would you say each emergency
takes? So you can only bill like an insurance company for the face-to-face time that you're with a patient, so you can only bill for what you're exchanging. The average length of a disposition of somebody in an emergency room is about 2.5 hours, 3 hours, but you can only bill for the time that you spent face-to-face. The other time you're on the phone trying to find a hospital bed, calling Cheshire, calling New Hampshire Hospital, calling Concord Hospital, anybody got a bed for this person, calling the insurance company, getting the authorization. So it usually takes about 2.5 hours to wrap up the case, but you can only bill about an hour of it.
And that's $250
an hour.
456?
I think it's 256. Might even be 264, because I haven't memorized them all lately, but it's 200 and something, I can tell you that.
Anybody else at the table?
Just a quote, just numbers, quick math. The 26 emergencies last year divided by 8,000 would have been $300 per incident. 307.
Again, you're not taking into consideration the time that we're
No, I know,
sitting there
just for
waiting.
basic numbers.
Yeah.
Just
It's
that's
the non-face-to-face.
Yeah, that's good.
a much better bargain than that.
Anybody else at the table have a question? Scott?
Just ask a question that just triggered what
Sure.
stated earlier. On your surplus funds that you have like $1 million in surplus. Are you subsidizing your operations off and the interest off in that money?
Interest we use, goes into our fund.
Because the question
But
that you...
the appreciation does not. That's what he wanted.
A concern I had is what you stated earlier, that you had the money in an investment vehicle that when the stock market crashed, you lost a substantial amount. Why would you have monies that you have to have as a guarantee that you're not using to subsidize your operation, your day-to-day operation, in a vehicle that is highly susceptible to being able to crash like that?
We don't have the entire fund in security.
But you must have a substantial amount of it affecting you that.
We have two large certificates of deposit. Two different banks.
But they would have not been...
We're both banks.
But they would have not been susceptible of certificate of
No,
deposit.
they were not.
It's like one giant milk dud.
But again, that income from the CDs, we do actually in it.
But why would you have the other money in an investment vehicle that is so susceptible to up and down that you could have one year you could lose, 20% very easily. You can gain 20%, but you can also lose 20%, as opposed to having an investment vehicle that you're guaranteed to what you're going to get.
According to all the advice that we've gotten from various financial people, plus our outside auditors, keeping money in the bank, securely getting 2% or 2.5% versus what you can possibly earn in the market is much better handled if you put it in the market.
It's a gamble.
It's a gamble.
Yes, welcome, Scott.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I think. You want to give
Anything
them more
else, sir?
information?
Well, I was just going to mention where that money came from. I mean, it didn't come from donations and so forth.
It didn't come from them.
A chunk of it came from the state. Back in the good old days, they would, under Medicaid, they would pay us the federal portion and the state portion. However, they said the state portion did not belong to us. We had to hold it in reserve in case they needed it for another mental health center. And that went on for quite a few years. And they did actually draw some money from it on and off. But then they were finally convinced that that wasn't their money. So they released it. We didn't have to hold it anymore. So that was a large chunk of cash that we put in. The other portion came from an investment made quite a few years ago. An organization that represented all of the mental health centers. And they dealt with insurance companies for us. And that organization was bought out. Was it Walpole?
I think so.
Yeah, I think Walpole. We got a portion of the proceeds from the sale of that. And that's what we developed the fund.
I think that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was
Thank
very
you.
informative.
Nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Maggie.
Thanks. There's my agenda. Okay. One other thing we had to do was, when we voted on, did I explain that earlier? Wayne had reclused himself.
Yep.
When we voted on, yep. So we want to do that again. And somebody wants to make a motion to fund youth assistance program.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to fund the youth assistance program.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
For how much?
$42,080.
$42,080. Wait a minute, we gotta find it.
Here we go.
$42,080.
Okay, so we have a motion to fund youth assistance program by Jane, second by John?
Yep.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain.
And abstain? Okay, so moved.
Don't you have to abstain?
Yeah, you stay.
Why be?
I'm a director, but I think it's important for the town. I don't have any gain or loss, whether they are funded or not.
Excellent, so we got that covered. Other business. I put in everybody's name so they get their stipend. We got the W-4s. John will get his. Should get that either this week or next week. And the selectmen's budget will be coming via email in the next couple days.
We will be working on it at 2 o'clock tomorrow. Tying up loose ends, it will be a draft copy, obviously, because we have contract negotiations, and there are a few numbers that haven't come in yet. And we'll have Tim email that out by Friday as a draft for everybody.
Okay. And there's some changes to the police department budget, or staffing, or?
There's a change to the police department staff with Lieutenant Paul's retirement. We've made a change to the hierarchy. We are going to have a Sergeant 2 position, which would be a instead of 2 lieutenants, we'll have a Sergeant 2 position and a...
We haven't voted on that yet.
Here we have.
I thought we just eliminated the lieutenant and made a captain.
No, voted for July 1st, 2014. My lights so Sergeant 2 position. The plan is that it wouldn't begin until July of 2014. We haven't...
One giant milk dud.
I think what Catherine's referring to is we haven't actually gone through the process and said this position's opened yet, but that we made a motion that that would be our plan to fill that position.
It says police department.
Budgetary reasons, that's what's you're going to see.
Okay, so on the draft budget that we're going to get, what the Public Works Department, his is all done, right? Dennis, usually. The police department, is their budget all done? Will there be changes?
There will be changes because of contract negotiations. There'll definitely be changes, and that won't end until January.
Well, they won't actually be in the police department's budget, it'll be a warrant article. And then the warrant article, if it's approved, we'll put it into their budget.
Okay, because it'll be after the hearing time, right?
Right.
Yep, we'll be voting on...
They
theoretically will come to an agreement with the negotiations. A warrant article will be produced for the March town meeting, which the legislative body will vote on.
Okay, but that warrant article will be before the hearing,
We
public
have to
hearing?
have it before February 1st, yes.
Yeah,
We have to have the numbers.
Okay,
Everything
so they'll
has to
have
be
their
signed.
contract will be done before February 1st, and that's when we're having a public hearing on the warrant articles.
Right.
Oh, we'll be having a special town meeting, won't we?
I can see a special come, it's going to be tough to avoid this.
We're hoping to get it done mid-January.
Okay, and out of curiosity, are they planning on any more vehicles next year?
Yeah.
Really? How many?
One.
Just one.
In the budget. Half in the budget and half out of the detail fund. We also hired an officer.
Okay, over the past year, we haven't gotten accurate and consistent mileage reports.
We've only gotten 2, I believe.
And, yeah.
We just got one two weeks ago.
Yeah, that's one of the 2.
There's something about, some of them, they're not able to get the mileage off the
Arthur had to
vehicle
go in and
because
do
of the
code.
Yeah, because...
Right, you can't, there's 3 vehicles on the 6s, the 06s, you can't read the odometer because of the dash, there's a problem with reading it, so...
They can't fix that, or?
Well, it's to fix, but
Well,
Arthur's gone in and got
the
the
biggest
mileage.
concern is, I never see the old cars driving around, and then just last weekend, for the farmer's market, we had a brand-new car there. I mean, a brand-new, one of the new cruisers sitting there at the, I mean, all those cars are out all the time. And, I mean, I did some rough numbers, and I'm seeing that we're already going through lots of brakes on them and all that, and I thought it was bumper to bumper.
There was a vehicle at the craft fair last weekend, sitting at the craft fair with it wasn't being used, it was sitting as an obstacle because the Explorers were the ones that were directing traffic. So it wasn't a
They were
police
using a
officer.
brand new car?
They were using,
They were driving that.
but it was sitting there idling, and it's,
Police officer drove
you know, it's another one of our vehicles putting time on an engine that's just sitting there. That,
As Vicky Palmer's was.
I think
The
that was,
understanding is they're supposed to use the oldest vehicles for details.
Yeah, John was right, I saw this, it was a brand-new Frontline cruiser. It had the lights going and the engine was, there were actually 3 officers
There are 3.
talking at that point in
There
time.
was,
Those were the Explorers.
the Explorers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, there were 3 Explorers there.
It was also an officer.
I think that's, I was pretty shocked, because I think that's a very expensive blue light flashing. And, that's, yeah. Well, I would ask that maybe the selectmen can step in and start go after the reports and chart out how many miles are being put on these new cars compared to the old ones. Because, you know, I looked at some of the repair miles, and we've got like 40,000, I think, after a few, 6 months or something on one car.
But typically when we buy new cruisers, and trust me, I'm not an advocate of buying a new car every year. I know that that's what they like to do, but the theory is we want our frontline officers in new cruisers. When they're out patrolling, they have to go speeding after somebody, we want them in the safest vehicle possible. So when we buy a new car, it replaces an old car, and the old car gets bumped down the line to maybe a detective car, a prosecutor car, or I've got to go to Concord to do a class car or whatever.
Or a detail car.
Or a detail car, or the SRO's car. But the new cars, you're going to see them on the road because typically the policy has been they're the frontline cruisers because it's the safest vehicle to put those officers in.
And I guess where the policy gets a little blurred is what we're seeing a lot of the newer frontline cruisers doing detail work, just sitting there. I saw that they, especially up around the TD Bank North, they were doing detail work with the frontline cruisers. The farmers market was with a frontline cruiser. So the frontline cruisers, if our purpose was to get them out on the road, that's different from getting them to do a detail.
Our policy is that they go through the older vehicles for details.
It'll come up the next time we talk to the chief.
And if there is an exception to that, I would like to hear that. I would like to get a phone call if there's an exception to that. If you see that there's an exception to that rule, then please give me a call and I'll go out and check it out personally.
Right. So I guess that's the only concern, just to monitor and to check.
I never noticed
the 2011, the 2012, they're not supposed to be using as detail vehicles. No, absolutely not.
There's 2 cruisers.
Interceptors,
I mean,
no.
Those cars aren't actually, one of the Explorers isn't going to jump in one of those and go off to a call. So it's basically, it's like a, you could use an inflatable car there. If it gets there, tow it there, whatever. Put the lights on.
Explorers don't drive.
Yeah, so it was just
I was
idling.
surprised that I went out.
It's the worst on an engine.
I was surprised I went out for the
If it's running.
Thursday night insanity at Walmart, and there was
funny.
2 cruisers parked right on the front. Right on the front of the store, with both running with lights on in front of Walmart. But
So, and I,
That was probably a shoplifting.
I've had,
no, they were just sitting there the entire time.
I've had 2 people report to me that cars are being used for an officer to drive home to Concord. So, using the white SUV.
The old white detective car is being used to go to Concord. Yes.
He's a first responder.
He's a first
If he's called out in the middle of the night when he's home, he doesn't go from home to police station to get a cruiser to the incident. He has to be able to go straight to the incident.
Right.
That's why he's taking.
So he
He's
drives.
not a patrolman.
Right.
He is.
He's the captain.
I wasn't going to identify.
Okay.
But yeah,
Well,
he's the captain.
next in line. I mean, you.
So he is a
Okay.
first responder. That's why it's necessary. He has to.
So yes, you're right, John. We
Okay.
followed up on that, and that is true, but it's not the SUV. It is the white, the old white detective's car.
Okay. Because if somebody asks me these things, then
Right.
I don't know.
Well,
So-
when you brought it up, I checked on it.
Okay, so we get that. So we'll get the financials. I'd like to see some kind of breakdown as to how the vehicles are being used, especially when we're going to get another one, and, what the schedule is for putting them on and rotating them. I know we used to do that a couple of years ago, but include all the vehicles. I mean, you don't have to describe them exactly. You can use the year or something like that. So we can see that, I think we got 3 in the last 2 years, or 4?
3.
3. Now we're going to get another, and when we go to the taxpayers, I can tell you it's going to be a big thing. Why in 2 years' time, we're going through 4 cruisers, and so I want to make sure we're rotating them properly and doing that.
You want mileage, besides mileage?
Yeah, the rotation schedule for them.
Rotation, okay.
And
The new cars have hour meters in them as well.
do they have hours meters?
That would probably be more of a telltale than mileage if they're sitting for 8 hours, 10 hours a day.
I think the new ones also don't have to run the lights. So, like the old vehicles, you had to
That's
run
true.
the engine because the LED lights, you could run
Right.
it for hours without ever starting that engine. So
And
that
that's,
might be a good way to see it, is by hours, not by miles. Like if it's sitting outside of something with the lights on for some reason.
He must have some way that he
don't have to run.
he tracks it.
My concern is not so much that they're being used. It's, if we have a policy, we should be just following the policy that we have created. If detail cars are supposed to be used to detail frontline on the roads, that's what we should be doing, because the public is looking and saying, why do I have this brand-new Interceptor sitting at the farmer's market and this old clunker patrolling? So that's my only, if we have policies, let's follow them.
We're not letting it rest for a while or something. The other car is holding up still, Franken car? The town one's holding
Franken
together
car.
still?
The Franken car.
Franken car?
Franken car. It's holding up. And so far,
Did Dennis need
I
any,
don't drive it, so.
did Dennis need any equipment this year?
Yes, he's put in, the capital improvement on his 10-year plan.
I forget what he... Okay. So, I don't know if there's anything else. Do we?
You asked me
Go
the
ahead.
other day about recycling and recycling.
Yes.
Good.
I have here with me tonight Mr. Davis from the Recycling Committee.
Excellent.
And we put together a little synopsis of tonnages and what have you. So Scott has
Yeah,
some
come on.
papers for you to look at. Mr. Davis from the Recycle Committee.
I'm all set right here. You'll hear
Come on,
me.
challenge, come on, Scott.
You can challenge me any way you want.
Gotta talk into the
Yeah, well,
microphone.
they'll hear me, Catherine, I guarantee you. Unfortunately or fortunately, we only have, does everyone have a copy of this?
One more? We can make,
I thought I gave 7. Did I not give?
that one for Joanna.
Will you make a copy? Can you give me a
Here,
copy,
take
Joe?
this one.
You got to memorize.
That's all right. I knew these figures, but I just wanted to hold it in my hand.
Everyone has a copy of this in front of them?
Yes.
I'll just get down through this quick.
No,
take a few minutes.
So it's just not in my hand.
What you have in front of you on the top part of this is the actual recycling, and this is 3 months of data that we've put together. Unfortunately, we don't have any more of that because we did not really start the program till this time. The month of August, we collected 23.49 tons of recycling material. September went 26.02, and October 32.33. 81.84 tons, which is an average of those 3 months of 27.28. If you just pull that out, which I did here just to give us an idea, we're looking at, at this rate, we'd be looking at around 327 tons for the year. And that out of the 1,306 tons of residential on the residential side of trash, that would put us at around 25.06 tons. Our goal was 25.06%, sorry about that. Our goal when we started was to try to take 30% out of the residential side of the recycling. That was the the goal we were trying to hit. But something that's happened then, if you look at the bottom, it's kind of interesting. On the solid waste collection comparison from 2012 to 2013, if you look at the numbers here, the reduced tonnage going down that we're hauling out of town on our trash has gone down 140.05 ton, which that would equal 42.89%. We've reduced our tonnage in those 3 months. So either there's many ways to look at this. Joe calls it ghost tonnage, but it could be people are buying different. I know there are a couple of circumstances where there's, up towards the lake, they've rented a dumpster, so they're not buying the bags, nor are they on the residential side, because like it's a group of houses are together in a certain section up there, and they've gone ahead and just felt it's easier for them for a dumpster. So but at that percentage, at 42%, we're generating, that would reduce the cost to us to take down the landfill at about $37,000 if we keep it that 42%. So I think that in looking at the first 3 months, I'm fairly pleased with the numbers for the program, how it started. We got started a little later than we wanted to for the year, so hopefully when we come to the town meeting, we'll be able to have 6 months worth of information that we can present to the townspeople. On the revenue side, it's very hard to look on the revenue side on the bags. Say like with Billy over here, if he makes an order on Monday for bags, he places an order, they're delivered on Thursday, he gets an invoice on Thursday, and he has 30 days to pay that. Then that's paid to Waste Zero. And then there's so many days before that money comes back to the town, so it's almost a 60-day, we're behind, 60 days. We brought in $18,656 so far on the bag sales to date of revenue to the town. Now that's not what's been sold, that's the revenue that's actually come back to the town. So our goal was that we could pay the $87,000 that we put for the contract for hauling the recyclables. And that $87,000 included the barrels for the first 3 years. I think it was a 3-year contract, right? The Selectmen signed. So if you look at what we're, the first 3 months, we've made about $18,000 in revenue. And if you look at what we're reducing, what they're going to have to pay for tonnage hauling into the landfill, we're going to be really close. The bag costs that was presented last year at town meeting was $2 and $1.25.
That's what the projections were based on.
When we made the projections to the town, that was based on that dollar figure. It's been reduced, which is fine. It makes no difference. As I've said to the committee, you deal with what you have. But even reducing it to $1.50 and $1, we're going to be very close to coming up with the amount of money. The concern that I have, or not a concern, but something I wanted to bring to the Budget Committee and to the Selectmen, is in their future contract, what's happened in town, and I think a lot of us see it, places that had 10 or 11 barrels out now have 5 or 6 bags out when it comes to collection. So the people that are picking up the trash are doing it much quicker. Joe got called, was it from Casilla? The gentleman from Casilla?
Jerry Tweedy is the gentleman's name. And we discussed, and I believe I mentioned this to you, that if our MSW continues to go down at the rate that it has been, they'll be able to pick up all the garbage in one day. That would cut, right now we have 10 trucks in town every month in a 4-week month. 8 of them are MSW and 2 of them are recycling. If we can cut 4 MSW trucks every month, they have expressed a willingness, if that were to be the case, to cut us a break, renegotiate, because our total tonnage is down, and yet we're paying $87,000 more every year to haul it away. They don't need to run 2 trucks a week, or they won't need to run 2 trucks a week, as we proved to them that this is going to be real. And like I said the last time, this is just conjecture, because until it's done, it's not done. But the potential is definitely there. So if we can hold these figures and cut 35 or 40%, because I don't expect to cut it in half necessarily, our total bill, but if we could cut 40% off of our total hauling, then the program is definitely paying for itself. And we're tons and tons of stuff that isn't going into the atmosphere.
So at this point in time, it's a 2-year contract?
3.
3-year contract, so it's a 3-year contract, so that could be renegotiated after the 3rd year, even if nothing happened in between around the actual tonnage. So my second question is, based upon any other studies that have been done throughout the state, is there a point that we'll reach a plateau effect? Right now, we're in a good increase in recycling and a good decrease in the solid waste. Will there come a time when that will plateau?
I'm sure.
Inevitably,
when it plateaus, at what level statewide has that occurred, or is there any information around that?
The Sarah Lakeman, who was from RCAP Solution and who was very instrumental, some of you may have met Sarah or seen her during presentations we've made. Her position was cut with RCAP Solution. We don't have that resource anymore. So to just call up and say, okay, what's a statewide average of recycling? And I know that it's just over 40% in Concord. Which is actual recycling. And I didn't ask the guy, what did your MS, how much was the ghost tonnage? Whether it's going to composting, I'm bringing it to work, or, people are getting rid of their garbage. And although we've had some beside the road dumping, nowhere near the kind of stuff that would account for 14 tons of garbage.
But if we plateau around 40%, okay, let's say that's the plateau, it may or may not, will that sustain your accounts?
Well, there's 2 ways to look at, Wayne, on the financial side of it. One is the offset, with which we pay $66.80 for every ton we haul down, okay, for trash. So if you're at 40%, you're roughly going to be about $35,000 you're going to reduce, and I think on your budget this year you're going to see it's going to show 10%. Somewhere around $75,000 for the residential trash hauling, okay? Because I know Tim split it out this year. The rest of it's commercial, which brings revenue back into the town. But so if you reduce that, about $35,000 there, the other revenue source is on the bags, on the revenue that's generated by the bags to offset that contract. Now that's money out of our pockets, okay? So there's not a savings. That's money out of your pocket. But I think if we could do 35,000 reduction on the amount of tonnage that we're hauling in, okay? And also that when the contract comes up, if the selectmen can renegotiate the contract because there's a reduction in the amount of time they're spending in Tilton to pick up our trash, then hopefully we might be able to, as Joe said, I don't know what that contract's $75,000. If you could take another $25,000 off that, say, which might be possible because there's a commercial side, but so if you take that off, no, it's $110,000, isn't it, Catherine, on the commercial hauler? Or the residential hauling contract? It's $75 to haul it in, and it's $110,000, I believe, for the hauling contract, the actual curbside pickup. So if you could take $25,000 off the $110,000, you'd be looking at roughly $60,000 from the 87. So you'd be getting it, I think if we can get up that close, that's about as good as we can expect to do, outside of the bag revenue.
One other thing, at the end of 1 year, in the terms of our curbside recycling contract, we will take a look at the recyclables. We opted to not receive profit from the recyclables, because that's a number that goes up and down, and if they have to pay to get rid of the recyclables, we pay. If there's a profit, then we profit, but there's no way of knowing. So the very first year we wrote into the contract, we'd take a look at what the price over the last year, what the trends were, with an eyeball toward receiving a percentage of the recycling proceeds. They bring a truck down to Lawrence or whatever, Portland, Maine, and they sell it for $250 a ton or something. we would receive money from the proceeds of that as well. But that was such a what-if. The first year, we were like, meh, we don't want to have to pay extra, just in case the bottom fell out, although it hasn't. I just don't know what the prices are right
Doesn't
now.
Laconia receive proceeds from the recyclables?
That's because they bring them down, and they have their own trucks and their own,
Right, but they sell their...
they sell those recyclables.
Like Samberton does, too.
Franklin sells their
Samberton.
recyclables.
I think so, too.
Yeah,
Samberton.
they've got a glass
I think
grinder.
something to keep in mind, too, or also, is that if when they renew the contract, we already have the containers, which were built into the price of the $87,000 for the first 3 years. So when they renew that contract, they won't be putting all new barrels out there, so there should be a reduction for those barrels, and I don't know what that cost would have been. What would that have been? Do you have any idea?
I think the total of the barrels was somewhere in the vicinity of $14,000. And they spread it over 3 years, so there's a few grand off.
So that would squeeze the number a little bit closer.
Right. So the idea is to narrow that band of expenditures as we're going along by increasing the recyclables, increasing the tonnage, so that when we get to a plateau, we'll be around that 40%, which will be able to, for a very stable, hopefully for a stable time, narrow the expense across the years for that to occur.
We did the projections that we presented to town meeting last year, Wayne, were on 30%, if we could hit the 30% plateau. But also using 30%, the bag revenue was at $2 for the large bag and $1.25 for the small bag. So you got a 50 cents less on the large bag, and what we're seeing with the orders, most people are going with a larger bag because it's the best buy.
So 25% of our anticipated revenues to help pay for the hauling aren't there anymore. So when it is what it is, but it's like he said, it's going to be close.
I would hope that $14,000 for barrels is an inaccurate number, because we have 1,400 households in town, so that would come to $1,000 a barrel.
No.
$10 a barrel.
$10 a barrel.
$10 a barrel, oh, thank God.
You've got the calculator
Yeah,
right there,
my
dude.
goodness.
Come on. A little quick math.
Add the decimal.
It was startling for a moment.
Those were yours barrels.
You'll be all right.
1,400 and 14,000.
Do it in your head.
What am I doing here,
I
man?
have a question. What's commercial
You scared me.
tonnage versus residential tonnage? Like how, what is?
There was 4,600, when we first started the program, there was 4,632 ton.
No. What is the definition of residential versus commercial?
They pay to have their own hold.
Commercial is
And they
all
pay
the stuff
us.
at Exit 20, all the businesses that, and there's
Holly's
haulers.
dumpster.
There's haulers that haul in on our
We don't pay
tonnage.
for, we're not paying for.
We're not paying, no. What it
They
is
pay
it's
us.
built in our taxes. We're paying in our tax, it shows in our
Right.
taxes.
Right.
But
We
it's
have
an
to raise
offset
it.
with the revenue. We have to raise it through taxation.
Yeah, but like, so all the businesses on Main Street, they get their trash taken away for far.
Yeah, not on
Some
the
of them
commercial
do.
side.
Not the Pizza
Well,
House.
not the Pizza
They have a dumpster. If you hire a dumpster,
Okay, that's what, I didn't know if
Use
it
that
was
as a
like the stuff that
guideline.
went
It
down.
generates around 200, I think last year was $212,000. Came out of that 300 and
Technically,
some odd $1,000
any
figure.
business in this town can put out 5 bags of garbage. 5 containers of garbage.
Well,
Any business.
what about the place in Lockmere that they've decided to get a dumpster? Are they considered commercial or?
Yes,
They
that'd
are
be
now.
one on the commercial
Yep.
side, and that's
Well,
what
if
I
I
was saying.
get one at my house, I'm commercial all of a
That-
It'd be
sudden.
commercial.
Yeah, because
And
it's,
that would come off the commercial tonnage, which might explain some of the ghostage that we were talking
Okay.
earlier.
Also, I think you may want to take a look at, we've lost some residents in our apartments. That certainly has affected the way the tonnage is going.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have an apartment house with three apartments. One who has 3 barrels, because that's what they're allocated, 3 barrels for that one house, but only one apartment that is being occupied.
but we've gained a lot of apartments in Lockmere.
I think the numbers are also going to get better too, because people knew that it was coming. Did it myself those last weeks of using the Glad bags that I still got.
Absolutely.
Do my spring cleaning, do my fall cleaning,
Yep.
and get that, it's.
Well, in September, we actually started the program, but that accounts for the 2 weeks of amnesty.
It's 2 weeks.
During those 2 weeks, interestingly enough, our MSW spiked.
Yeah.
Because, hey, I did the same thing.
Clean house.
I brought out every piece of metal and junk that I could to the curb, that I cleared all away, and tried to get rid of all the heavy stuff.
It'll be interesting to see when this plateaus.
Yeah.
And where it plateaus, because that will be able to get some real good data to take a look at the study.
Unfortunately, kinda, for our numbers, is the wintertime is the slowest time here in Tilton. After we go through the Christmas holiday rush, January, February, March, mud season, right, winter, those are the slowest garbage months. Summer comes, summer people come, the tourists come, the restaurants are busier, and all of a sudden we have a lot more people, we generate a lot more garbage tonnage-wise.
I had a question, I think I brought up 2 weeks ago. How is this going to be showing up on our budget when we get it? You mentioned you're going to have both ways.
We did.
Somewhere it's going to show underneath it's got to show somewhere underneath that sanitation line, somewhere I would think, but.
The selectmen have asked the finance officer to prepare a sheet similar to the detail fund that'll show the revenues and bag sales, et cetera, et cetera.
Now, when you present the budget, I think you were saying that you were going to put it both ways in case they voted it down.
Well, that's why we didn't reduce the MSW line even further. We figured that even if, heaven forbid, at town meeting, a warrant article is presented, it's voted on and passed, and we no longer have curbside for recyclables. Well, we have an out, we have a clause in our contract, so we can get out of that. But whatever we've gotten in savings on that MSW line would cease right there. If he didn't plan for that in advance, then where would his money come from to pay the increased MSW? Because we wouldn't have curbside recycling in barrels anymore, and the 140 tons or whatever is gone. So that's now going into MSW, and how do we pay for that? So he couldn't reduce that line significantly this year. If we still have curbside recycling pickup after the town meeting, then there's too much money in that account. And some of that money might go in case we get a little short of bags, there's too big a lag time or whatever in our account. But we couldn't count on it.
Well, perhaps I don't understand. My question is,
yes.
If we're going
You're trying to find out where it is in the budget.
Well, where it is in the budget and why we're accounting for it both ways, because maybe this year it will get voted out. So next year, anything could get voted out. So we can't,
We don't have to account for it in the budget. The petition, it would be, I'm sure the selectmen aren't going to entertain a warrant article to eliminate the recycling.
I would hope not.
So it'd have to come by way of a petition warrant article. Which we're going to have by, I usually use Groundhog Day. It's right around the 2nd of February that they're due.
I think the whole...
Give or take a couple days. So when we get to town meeting, we're going to have better figures. We can either vote to reduce
or increase it.
Or increase the line.
Our hopes, the committee's hopes, John, and I think we're going to be very close. I wish we had more time, that we had run the program before we were in front of you tonight, because there's such a backlog, and the first part of it, getting the finance and getting the revenue source started, it took so long. Tim worked on it, and it was trying to get the invoices that were coming from Waste Zero back to the town, that there was really almost a 90-day window there that a lot of them weren't being paid.
Initially, yeah.
Initially. So we have $18,000 now that's been brought in with revenue. If we looked at that on a 3-month window, say that was for the first 3 months that we were operating the program, and you times that by 4, you'd be looking at somewhere around $72,000. It's an $87,000 contract, so we'd be about $15,000 short there. Our hope was that the $45,000 that we started out with was the seed money we needed to get our program up and going. But I think we're going to be very close. I really do. I think when the numbers all play out, we're going to be within $10,000 or $15,000 to be able to run the program without any tax backup. without any money coming from the taxation for backup.
But that 80s,
Catherine's saying with a...
but that 87 included 14,000 barrels.
That's right, but it's for the first 3 years.
Right.
That $87,000 is the number that we're shooting for the first 3 years. So hopefully, the first year is going to be the roughest to get going, to get the numbers and try to get all the information in front of you, in front of the townspeople too. One thing I do hear is that single-stream recycling is very, people who were against it originally, they seem to be for it now because of how easy it is. You just throw everything in the barrel, you don't have to separate, you don't have to put your cans here, your bottles here, and all this here. So hopefully that when we go to town meeting, we'll have information that we can present to the people, that will have a better grasp on the numbers, the cash flow from the revenue from the bags. Hopefully we'll have that, and we'll have another 3 months' worth of information that what's been hauled in down there.
Yeah, I'd like to see the number, if we're just putting it in there now in the budget, I'd like to see it amended on the floor.
Well, it could be, and like Catherine's saying, somewhere, the article, the way it was presented at town meeting, the way it was passed and the way it was written, is kind of interesting, because we brought it out Tuesday, was it Monday? Monday, we met Monday, and we brought out the warrant article that was passed, and the money that's raised can go to any sanitation, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Total
the way it
waste
was
management.
written,
Total
they
waste
can go to
management.
any waste management, whether it's curbside garbage, amnesties, the 2 cleanups in the fall and the spring, whatever we do. We can, we have obligations to pay these debts, so we have, I guess, a couple of places to pull the monies from.
And saying that, if you had, you could look at it that if you were reducing Dennis's budget, well, I say Dennis's budget, but the sanitation part for the hauling in of the residential, if we reduce that, you could always just put that instead in a warrant article so that people would see every year what they're going to pay for the whole program. Both the residential for the hauling of residential, plus for the recycling of residential. So you'd have one number instead of trying, I hate to confuse people because, most people go to the town meeting, that's the only time they ever look at the numbers. And if you've got one number built in that says 75,000 for residential trash removal, and then you've got a warrant article in there that's looking for X amount of dollars too, it really does confuse some people. They don't.
I think it would be easier if we separated it commercial, residential.
It is commercial, it's going to be separated this year, which I think is going to clarify a lot of it.
That's going to be tough if it looks the same as it did before, and people are going to say it's not working if they don't understand.
Tim's already got it, and
How
he
it
showed
works.
us on
Yeah.
You asked us last week, Jeff.
Our draft budget actually has those 2 lines.
Well, hopefully they'll vote to do it, Catherine, I'll put it that way. It would, I think that the commercial, because that's a lot of people look at what the expense is, and they don't look at that there's revenue. So when you look at that $300 and some odd thousand number for sanitation, to haul in down there, for the 4,634 ton we were hauling in down there, that's a big number. When you're looking at 300 some thousand, but what a lot of people don't realize is there's an offset because of the we charge, it's $66.80, but the town charges $70 for every ton of commercial that's hauled in. So there was $210,000 or $212,000 worth of revenue that offsets that number.
Would it be of any benefit to have the commercial do recycling? Do we get any revenue?
They do their own
But they sell theirs.
See, that's a saleable
Cardboard.
thing. Ganger
Cardboard,
sells
but-
cardboard at $70 a ton. Everything
you
comes in
see-
cardboard.
Like the strip where Cumbies and all that is. Everything goes in the dumpster, all the cans, bottles, everything. Would it be beneficial if they were to have curbside
They're
of the
probably
recyclables?
already doing a
But
recycling
I'm talking
program
about the
once they're
recycling, if they had one of those recycling barrels that they filled up.
Or they'd fill it every day.
Right, or did that, would that be of any benefit to the town?
Built 10 a day.
No,
To
because
the
we're not getting
environment,
anything,
maybe.
we're not generating any money off in our recyclables right now.
Actually, we'd
And-
lose money because we profit off of the more trash they...
That's right, we're profiting off of whatever they haul in for trash.
Bucks a
But
ton,
as Joe stated, that there is a chance in the future, but then again, you're gambling. If you can get a contract where you know what your numbers are up front, you can present it to the people. If you take a number and you say, okay, the number is a variable, but it can go up and down depending on the market value of your recyclables, it's a gamble.
Do they give you a breakdown of what, after they sort it, what came out of the town? Cardboard?
No, we don't get a break.
They haul
You don't
it
even
to
know.
the transfer station on 140 and dump it. We have a tonnage total because the trucks have a scale in them, but it goes in a giant pile, and they have bucket loaders that load it into giant trucks that take it to the recycle center.
Yep. So you don't know if you were trying to figure out the cost of the markets, you wouldn't even know until you actually did it yourself.
And see, and that's
Yeah.
the trouble. It's for every different item that you're recycling, there's a different market. And that market is up and down all the time, you know.
Could possibly get gross tonnage from Franklin, what they get, what they send, and then what they check they get from it, maybe get some
I
gross
can find out
numbers,
those
you know,
figures.
some gross
The market for single stream unsorted recyclables, I can get the spot market prices, and I should have probably had it tonight.
We don't have an average yet. There's
Yeah.
no way to know.
No.
Now,
And that's the
there's no
reason that we
chance-
want to get a year behind our belt so we can really get a good grasp.
There's no
of it.
chance at the next town meeting of this stopping, right?
Of course there is.
Oh, yeah. We'll know by February.
This is a
That's when
democracy,
petition warrant
buddy.
articles are due.
Anybody can present a warrant article, and if the people in that hall decide to vote in favor of discontinuing, that's it.
And all that cost would go.
I know of 3 groups that don't want recycling.
Yeah,
And there's various ways.
3 little quick,
to eliminate it.
One is with Franklin, Laconia, and everything with their profit, we need to remember they have their own truck, and it comes along with their maintenance problems and other issues they've had with that trucks.
Employees and benefits.
Second piece
We
that I
used to
have
do
is I
that.
want to thank the people that are actually collecting recyclables, because they're actually stopping with people saying, you can recycle this, you can't recycle that. And they say, well, take it this time, but don't put it back in the barrel the next time around. So they've done a real good PR piece for us, and I think they should be told to keep up the good work of the PR piece. Third piece I'd like to talk about is the barrels. We bought the barrels. They're renting the barrels. Oh, okay, we're renting the barrels. So if this apartment house that has 3 barrels and 1 apartment, and we have 2 extra barrels that are just sitting there, are we being charged for those barrels?
We've already been, it's built in. The cost
Okay,
is
so it's
built
all been built in.
And if there are actually 3 separate apartments in there, and you take away 2, and then they rent another one, we've taken it away, now we have to bring it back, and then maybe in a month we bring it back again. How much does it cost to do that?
And I'm just taking a look at that, because if we change companies, and we have to change barrels, okay, that's something that I'm looking at, what are we gonna do with this apartment house that no longer is an apartment house?
Well, Wayne, that would be, like I said, when the selectmen negotiate a new contract with this company, or they put it out to bid, I think they have to put it out to bid probably. But you put it out to bid, this company's gonna have an upper hand because they've already got, they should be able to bid less because they already have the containers in place.
Okay.
But that's something that you never know, you know, you might get a company that's really
I spoke with other
aggressive.
garbage companies, major ones, Waste Management, Pinard, that neither one of their bids, and I spoke with their representative, they couldn't come close to the $87,000 with the barrels. Never mind if the barrels are already paid for over 3 years, how are they going to come in and then undercut the $65,000 they want to charge us now? You know, that kind of thing.
And the only reason I ask you is that the theme is recycling, and if we're having all these garbage barrels just standing there, they're not being recycled, and we're paying for them, it seems like a waste of that money. And so that's what I was just...
It's not like we pay per barrel per month or anything. It was built into the contract, a barrel for every residential unit in the town. And so they got delivered, and maybe some of the residential, a house, doesn't have anybody living there, but they got a barrel.
Yeah, thanks for bringing all that in, that's very informative.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Like I said, we'll keep you informed. Thank you.
Good luck.
Motion.
Motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I think I can actually
So
make
moved.
this.